Good afternoon. I'm Richard Ayres and I'm a social care advisor at Care England. And I want to welcome you to the first of three very exciting workshops in a series with the amazing colleagues we have from Digital Care Hub and the Cyber Centre of Excellence. This series is designed to help providers with varying technical abilities and knowledge of cybersecurity to navigate some of what many call the basics, such as sort of passwords, multi-factor authentication, and using virtual private networks, but also how to spot and deal with phishing, the risk of ransomware, and what support solutions are out there currently. And for those who participate and join us in subsequent events, they will also receive a dark web search for their organisations as we take a look into the hidden dangers of the dark web and how and where we may be exposed to breaches, and then into our third session where we'll look at resilience, recovery and incident response, and what key staff really need to know and what they need to action and what they should consider to build long-term cyber resilience. So today's format will consist of myself covering the housekeeping, after which I shall introduce Curtis from CCP, who will introduce himself and talk for about 20 minutes, followed by Sam, our ethical hacker from DCH, who again will introduce himself and talk for a further 20 minutes, after which I'll moderate a Q&A session. And we also have a 30-minute overflow remaining for questions and answers should further questions be raised that we need to get to. When Curtis and Sam are talking, you are free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens to raise questions privately during the presentation, and we will obviously raise those on your behalf privately. Alternatively, you are free to use the chat if you would like to put the question out there more openly. I will ask you all to mute yourselves during the presentation, and after Curtis and Sam are finished, as I said, I will facilitate a Q&A session where you can also raise your hands if you would like to ask a question directly. We are recording the session, and our intention is, as always, to note any questions down and send any FAQ if we don't get to them on the call, plus a copy of the recording and slides within sort of 48 hours of the event, depending on the questions that have been asked. We'll also send the contact details of our presenters today. So without further ado, please let me hand over to Curtis to start things off. Curtis, over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm sure everyone can see the screen, so I'm just going to jump straight in. So, as Rich said, he's joined us from Care England, and this is a combined workshop from Care England, myself from Cyber Centre of Excellence, and with Sam from Digital Care Hub. And we're going through a series today for just starting. So it's the first of three workshops for how much you should know in cyber. So this is what we're going through today. So we're just letting you all know the types of things that you need to know at different levels of the organisation, and the kind of basics that need to be known across the organisation, and any additions on top. So that's for workshop one. For workshop two, we're going to be looking at cyber in care. So we're going to be looking at, within cyber in care, we're going to be looking at the deep, the dark, and the hidden dangers. So in the next workshop, we're going to be looking at what the dark web is, how does data, including leaked login credentials, make its way onto the dark web, and what are the threats that come from that. We'll be touching on that a little bit today as well. Then the third workshop looks at resilience, recovery, and incident response. So within that, we're then looking seriously at what happens if this does happen to you, and what are the key actions you need to take to fix it, and what are the first things you should be doing for it. We've got a exercise for you all separately, so you can sign up to get a free dark web scan. So if you sign up today, then we'll have it in for you for later on. So the results come out in I think February, ahead of the third workshop. So we're going to be sending in a note about that, and someone from the team will be putting in a note into the chat with the link to be downloading the dark web report. So we'll get that to you during the course of the workshop, so you can sign up. We do have a limit of the first 50 organisations, so please do sign up for it as quickly as you can if you're interested in getting a free dark web report. Okay. So we're diving straight in, and we're going to talk about some of the compliance and regulations. So I work across multiple industries. I'm a cybersecurity expert, and I help public sector, private sector, care sector, universities and academia sector, and everything in between. What I hear frequently in different boardrooms and management structures is there's no other industry like ours. Ours is so unique because we've got this piece of regulation, and we've got this bit of compliance to worry about, and we've got these other things that we need to worry about. Otherwise, we can't operate. What I will say is that is genuine and true of all organizations and industries. So there will always be some kind of industry best practice, industry regulation, and some contractual regulations that you need to follow through on. That's going to be true of any area, and I know that obviously within the care sector there is DSPT, which Sam will be going through later. So I'll leave that to that part of the presentation. These parts then are true for all organisations within the UK. So the UK GDPR, EU GDPR before Brexit, and we now have the UK GDPR in addition, and the Data Protection Act 2018 are pieces of law that every organisation must deal with. Anybody in the care sector has to apply that doubly, because you will have special category of data as by nature of them being within your organisation, there is medical data within it. So you must be paying attention to that. 1 second. Having a couple of technical difficulties just sorting. So how much do you need to know? Everybody needs to know the basics. So everybody should know the following. Never share your usernames, passwords, or codes. That is a fairly obvious one that we've been talking about since the dawn of computers, but it still happens. So you shouldn't be using the shared usernames at all. Everybody should have their own individual email account or account that they're logging in with, and the password should be unique. Now, I appreciate that in some situations that's not always perfect, so it should just be a case of doing a bit of a risk review and deciding which areas are okay to do that in and which areas are not. We're going to go through a fair bit on passwords and MFA today. So passwords should always be strong and unique, and we'll go through exactly why during the course of the workshop. But it's again something we've been talking about for quite some time, and hopefully is kind of catching on finally now after about 4 decades of the same advice. MFA, multi-factor authentication, should be used wherever possible, and you should be making sure that your devices are up to date. You shouldn't really be seeing the update icon at the bottom of your computer. You should be doing it as soon as you can, and the same for your phones. Verify the website address. We shouldn't be using HTTP anymore. It should be HTTPS. This comes with one exception, and that is if you are changing the password on your broadband router at home, it will probably be a HTTP site, and that's okay because you're inside the network. I do recommend for anybody who hasn't done it yet, particularly if you work from home, to go on and change your broadband password and your admin password to your broadband. It's an easy one to be able to fix. Costs you nothing, does increase your security massively. We should now be moving towards zero trust for clicking on things within emails. So everybody has done it. We've all clicked on something, and then the IT team has said, "Oh, sorry, that was a phishing test," or we've clicked on it, it's not taking us to the right place. We should now be moving to a point where we have zero trust in email. So if you're getting an email from a colleague that says, are you going for coffee? This webinar is doing my head in, let's go. Whatever it is, then that's absolutely fine. If the email is asking you to download something, to look at something, or to see an attachment, that's when you then need to start having that zero trust element in and working out, right, well, do I trust this email before you click on it or before you open the attachment? And a key one is telling everybody that once it's online, it stays online. If you put a photo up or a piece of documentation or intellectual property about your organization and it goes online, if it's not meant to be wherever it's been, whether it's in ChatGPT or social media or some kind of other AI or Google, once it's up there, it's very difficult to remove yourself because you have no manual control over where it's deleted, and it could be copied and duplicated very quickly. So the premise is once it's online, it's there forever. Anybody in a position of trust and knowledge needs to know that the threats and risks of getting it wrong. So if you're in management, or if you're in an IT position, or if you're head of finance or have an accounts position, you need to know what's going to go wrong if you don't get it right. So the data that you've got access to and any repercussions of that being modified, accessed, deleted, changed, what are the repercussions of that? If they're significant, you must know more about cybersecurity. So that's the kind of point where you say, right, well, actually, I need to know a lot more than just unique passwords and MFA. I need to know what's going to go wrong if this data is out there and what to do to fix it. Now, positions of control, they need to know a lot. So the IT team, people in charge of IT, if you have a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, anyone at that level, need to be very on top of what they're doing within the IT kind of area. Any management, including the C-suite and the board, your board of directors included, any people that's got investment, should ensure that there is top-down buy-in for securing the company. They need to be there saying that we need to be secure for everybody, and they need to really have a basic understanding of what cybersecurity is about, and ideally more than a basic understanding of what tools you have in your arsenal to protect and what the options are to make sure you aren't facing any of those risks. So there should be a risk assessment done for the organization on what would happen if it went wrong. They're the ones who are making the buy-in message clear, so they should be saying to all of the organization, we really need to be pushing this out and making it clear for everybody. So everyone needs to fully understand that cyber is a business risk and requirement, not an IT issue. I'm going to repeat that because I have to say this all the time. Everyone needs to fully understand that cyber is a business risk and requirement, not an IT issue. So this is something that is across the entire organization. It isn't something that's just down to your IT team. We hear all the time that, oh yeah, our cyber's covered, our IT team handle that. The IT team are there to make sure that everything continues to run normally and to make sure that the organization has everything it needs technically to be able to get your jobs done. Cybersecurity is there to make sure that the things being done to keep the organization lights on are secure and they're not going to be accessed by anybody else. There is a big difference. You might have an IT person that's very cyber focused, which is great, but you need to make it clear that everybody in the organization has a responsibility to keep everything safe. That comes down from data protection right the way through to making sure you're using the right tools. So we're going to go through a quick exercise. You were going to play hangman. Don't worry, you don't have to move. So we're going to have 6 wrong guesses. We're going to go into 3 rounds. So first round is a nice and easy one. And Richard, I'm going to ask that you can still see my screen just to make sure that everyone's still able to see it.
Yep, still perfect.
Thank you. Just in the chat, could we have somebody put in any letter at all? Just tell me a letter for us to put in. So Katie, why don't you kick us off? Give me a letter. E, wonderful, thank you. Anybody else? Just start putting letters in. J, no. S, no. C sharp, no. A, right, we've got A. So anyone want to hazard a guess as to the next letter? I'm going to take the C as a C. Anyone want to give me the last letter? There we go, T. Right, so the first word is cat. Now, before I move on to the next one, I'm going to give a brief little bit of a history lesson. So anybody aware, or hope everybody is aware of Alan Turing, the man who helped to crack the Enigma code during World War II? If you've not seen the film, The Imitation Game, it's a great film and it goes into a lot of detail. Now, something that was highlighted in that film and is still true is that E is the most common letter in the English language, which I'm guessing is why Katie's put that in. Now, the other sensible bets are obviously vowels because they come up in most words. So the easy one to go through is E first and then any other letters. And if you play those kind of crossword games in newspapers where you kind of, or crossword puzzles, where you're trying to fill in all the blanks for the letters, that's exactly what this kind of exercise is. So with that in mind, we're going to move on to the next one. Now, this one is slightly more related to my own company. So I wear 2 hats, the Cyber Centre of Excellence and also my other company called Onka. And we have a very large cat that is the sigil and the background of the company. But I don't have one in here. There might be one somewhere up here, but it is the sigil of the company. Now, I'm just giving you that as a bit of a hint before we go into what the word might be. So again, somebody give me a letter. I think Richard knows exactly what I'm doing, but it's not the right one. E, no, you're close. Very close, but not the right one. So want to keep going. F, A again. Yep. We have an F. Nope. J, yep. H, no. Go on, Richard, keep going if you know it. No. G, yeah. Anyone want to fill in the blanks? Yeah. Ah, exactly. So Jaguar one. Now, I'm sure you guys are starting to work out that there's a reason that we're doing this in a talk about cyber. You have basically just worked out why Jaguar 1 exclamation mark would be an absolutely terrible password for us to be using in Onka Technologies because the Jaguar is our symbol. It's not as clever as we think it is just to be able to use something from the organization. It's easy for us to remember, but usually if it's easy for us to remember, it's also very easy to find out. So now we're going to just prove the point a little bit further by going into our last one. Anybody want to make a guess now? So we're not guessing it immediately, but we're going to start guessing the letters. So I've swapped out some letters for numbers. I've kept some of them in. So there is an A. Well done, Janine. I'll take an E and an R. They're both in there. A V. There's no V. Keep going. J, O, N. Okay, thank you. J, no. There is an O. And there is an N. S, no S, they've been swapped to 5s. M, yeah. Now, if I tell you now at this point, this is actually 3 separate words with some random bits in the middle, does that help at all?
No.
No. Well, the middle word is monsters. The last word is not carrot, but you're very close. P for parrot, yep. And the first word? I'm going to give you a U because nobody's given a U yet. It's a vowel easy. It's only 2 words. It could really be in the English language. Well done, Katie. It's houses. Now, this is to highlight that if you were all computer hackers and you were trying to get into somebody's account, this is exactly the type of thing that you're doing. Really, you're not doing anything more complicated than playing a more sophisticated game of Hangman. So that's the reason I do this exercise, just to highlight to people, when we say please use unique individual passwords, this is why. Because it can become quite easy to be able to work out somebody's password if you're able to find out a little bit about them and you can use the individual things that we know are typical tricks. So always use a password that's got more than 8 or more characters. We should really now be a minimum of 12. I recommend 16. It should always be having a combination of symbols, numbers, and uppercase and lowercase characters. Has never been used anywhere else. That's the key part. So if you're using the same password across a load of systems, please stop doing that. It is the easiest thing in the world for us to then take that information and apply it to other parts. Also, you can use the different tests for your password. So I did used to recommend Kaspersky, except Kaspersky is a Russian-owned company, and now I can't recommend it because within Russia, you can basically, it just means that if the Kremlin were to ask Kaspersky what the passwords were, they would have to pass them over. LastPass was also one that I recommended, except they got breached twice last year, so I don't recommend them anymore. Bitwarden, I do recommend. So if you want to test a password, then I recommend Bitwarden. I've got that up on the screen, so I'll just show you for a second. So if we then look at some other examples on here, so never use a password that contains less than 8 characters, is found in a dictionary of any language. I was once in a company in Norway and they said, you're never going to guess our password, and we're all very coy about it. And then I just looked up what the Norwegian word for password was. They don't have one, but the Norwegian for secret is hemmelig. So I typed in hemmelig1 exclamation mark and I got in. They just were using a different version of the word password. Don't do that. Attackers have access to other dictionaries too. It's typically known as a brute force attack. Don't use anything common. Don't use anything specific to you. So there's the hemmelig 0 was the example. Don't use names of family, friends, pets, co-owners, birthdays, computer terms, names, or any kind of common patterns. These are all well known, and if somebody is searching for your company specifically, they will also probably Google you and look for information on your social media. Don't look for anything the same. So don't use the same password between your business or non-business. And if it hasn't changed a while, the more likely it is that it's available somewhere else. So if you ask us to do the dark web report for you and you sign up for that, we'll be able to pass on and say exactly what, if any passwords have been found on the dark web, so you can change them. And the link for doing that is here. So here's a bit of a quick example and run through. A weak password, secret 1 exclamation mark, a strong password, I love coffee 33. This password could be broken in 19 minutes, this one in 5 months. However, I did this in 2022, so this is outdated. Now, if we do exactly the same thing, because there's Moore's law, which basically means that information, the power of computing doubles every year. That can now be cracked in 3 seconds. And I love coffee can now be cracked in 11 days. So it's always getting more and more difficult or more and more easy to crack into passwords, which is why they must be long and secure. So that used to take 5 months. Now it takes 19 days. The power of computing means that next year that will take about 8.5 days and then continue from there. So use Bitwarden, check your passwords. I highly recommend using a password manager. If you're using the password manager, the one that I recommend is 1Password. We're not affiliated with them, it's just the one that I use and I think it's really good. I'll do the BBC part of other password managers are available. Carry on through. I think Sam is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to carry on through, and if Sam's able to join, then we'll jump across to Sam's part. Otherwise, we'll carry on with this part up until the Q&A part. So we'll just carry on in, and Richard, you give me a shout if there's any change to that plan. So MFA is multi-factor authentication. So when we log into anything, we're always using at least one factor to get in. So usually you're using 2 by now. So you'll be using a username and a password. So two different things. So when you get in, you need who you are, that's your email address, and then you need something else to get in, which is usually a password or a PIN number, but it's something you know. Multi-factor means you should be using multiple factors. So either something you know, plus something you have, and something you are. Ideally, the best MFA has all 3. Something you know, your password, something you have, like a smartphone, so that you're going in and you're adding in the number when it comes up on your phone for authentication apps, or a secure keys. If you've got a hard token, you can pop it in. And then something you are like a fingerprint or facial recognition. So you've got that aspect usually on MFA. If you tie that in with your facial recognition or a fingerprint as well, you've got all three things covered. So that's secure MFA. Now, Microsoft have said this a couple of years ago that 99.9% of organization account compromise can be stopped with MFA, which is really, really inflated slightly from Microsoft. There are now other attacks that can make it more difficult, and with anything in cybersecurity, it was always temporary. But currently, it's still very good practice to have multi-factor. It's kind of like having a small bolt on the back of your door as your password, and then having an installed Yale lock with a separate key is now the multi-factor authentication. So anywhere that you don't currently have it installed, please put it on immediately. So you should have at least two methods for getting into anything. So no problem, Eleanor, thank you. I'll just carry on with this part then, and we'll jump to Q&A afterwards, and Sam can join in on the chat for after. So we should take precautions to keep any devices safe. So we should be conscious when connecting to any networks that aren't under company control, especially any public networks. So if you can use a private hotspot instead, so most people now will have data on their phone. It means that we've got great data connection available. And so you should have very good limits on it. Some people have unlimited. If you can access it through your phone anyway, and it's not costing you extra money, that is much more secure than connecting to public Wi-Fi. Not all public Wi-Fi is equal. So if you're connecting to the hotel Wi-Fi, not ideal. It's not as secure, particularly if they don't have a password to be able to get in. Other hackers might be able to get on and see what other traffic you're using. Key places never to use public Wi-Fi are airport Wi-Fi, train station Wi-Fi, or really busy public hubs. So if it's a kind of a Starbucks or a Costa or a coffee shop on a corner next to a travel area like an airport or something, don't use the public Wi-Fi there either. You're far better off using a private hotspot, and you should really be putting on a VPN if you can. So the one that I recommend, again, other VPNs are available, it's just the one that I'm currently recommending, is NordVPN. So NORD VPN. They're a fairly good one, easy to use. Comes with a caveat, any VPN you put on might block some websites that you're using. It won't be deliberate, but you can go into the VPN, just pause it for 5 minutes or a set of time, make sure it's coming back on automatically, and then you'll be able to do what you need. Key thing, never access banking information when you are on your public Wi-Fi, never access banking information. If you're connecting to via your 4G, putting on a VPN is always a good step too as well. So it's very sensible to do so. If you're logging onto your laptop and you want a connection, then if you can link to your hotspot on your phone, that's going to be much better for you. Make sure that your device has a PIN and a password lock. I am appalled that I still need to say this, but I was with somebody a couple of weeks ago and they'd left their phone on, and I tried to lock it and it didn't lock because there was no password on it. Didn't even know that you could still do that. Please make sure there is a password and a PIN on your phone. Ideally, it should be a minimum of 6 digits for the passcode onto it. 8 would be better. So, and again, for the same reason as the passwords, it's just more difficult to guess, particularly if they know anything about you. It's just more difficult to kind of come in. Face ID or fingerprint lock, ideal. Make sure your phone is also set to turn off automatically. So you want the lock screen to automatically come on after 2 minutes of inactivity or 30 seconds. The shorter, the better to come on. Most modern devices have additional security functions. It's always worthwhile looking at them and putting them on. For your computers as well, the same thing is true for the lock screen. You can set your computer to automatically lock and go to screensaver after a couple of minutes of inactivity. I recommend doing it. If you're using a Windows computer, you can use the start or Windows key and L to lock your computer quickly. I nearly did it, but it would put me out of the webinar, so I won't do that. So use the Windows and L key to quickly lock your computer. Or you can do it's similar on a Mac. I think it's just the Command L on a MacBook. So you do that anytime you're walking away. So start building it in as habit to just immediately kind of come through and Windows lock as soon as you're going to leave the computer, particularly if you're in an office environment. And if you're in a cafe or somewhere else, you want to make sure that you're locking your computer and moving away. Keep an eye out for onlookers. So if your device is visible from somewhere else and you're working on confidential information, you should be thinking about where you're sitting in that cafe, train, plane. There have been multiple times where I've been sitting on a plane and able to fully see email addresses and individual personal data and the entire work group of somebody sitting in front of me. Not because I'm trying to deliberately look, but just because it's right in front of my face and I'm on a plane and really bored. It's very difficult to look elsewhere. So just keep an eye and look. You can buy privacy screens for your computers so that they're only visible straight on and more difficult to see from a distance or from the side. They're really useful. So just go on to Amazon or wherever you prefer to shop and look for any kind of screen device for privacy, and you'll be able to jump in from, get that from there and just attach it to your screen. They're usually magnetic. Just be careful when you're putting them on. The best ones usually aren't magnetic, just adhesive will do. If you're putting it on and you are thinking about taking it on and off a lot, then you might look at a magnetic one. Personally, I prefer the ones that are just adhesives and just stay on the laptop and stay there and I don't have to worry about it. The reason the magnet ones can be difficult is if the magnet is strong, it can ruin your screen. So do that with caution. Check some reviews before you do it. I'm tied in through the Cyber Centre of Excellence with an advisory board, and I can tell you that anybody who's trying to do espionage on a company specifically, so if they're trying to get into an organisation, one of the first things that an ethical hacker or penetration tester or somebody from Secret Services will do is try to find out where people go for lunch, where their closest coffee shops are, where their travel commutes are, and they'll just follow them and do exactly this. And then they've got tools that basically they can just sit their phone up, watching where the screen is, and it will record and it will pull all the data it possibly can from a reflection. So we can see in my glasses that it's reflecting the screen, which is okay because I don't have any confidential data up. But it's that type of thing that can be used for it. So although it is something that seems like it's only from the movies, that part at least is based in truth. So please do make sure that you're keeping it hidden wherever you can. Make sure you've got security options like find your device or similar on, and make sure your device is backed up and up to date. That is really, really important. Never plug in any kind of removable storage device that you don't recognize or have control over. So if you find a USB stick on the floor, please do not plug it in. You don't know where it's come from. You don't know what information is on it. You don't know what types of things could be there. One of the things I like to do as if I'm doing a physical security test within a company is just put a USB stick down somewhere with some code that I've written onto it. So as soon as it gets plugged in, I get a notification sent to me. So I have a rough idea of when it was done, and then it pops up on the screen to say, why did you plug this in? Please report to IT. It's a very quick one. I am still surprised by how many people do it because they think, oh, I'll just have a look on that USB and see what information is there. So curiosity killed the cat is the case in here. Yeah, curiosity is a hacker's best friend. They're hoping that you will do something like that. So if you find a USB stick, hand it into IT, don't plug it in. And never use any kind of USB stick or external hard drive or anything like that that you haven't got from somebody you really trust, like your IT department. If you have got any questions, Richard said, please just pop them into the chat or into the Q&A option, and we'll answer them at the end. We're just going through some basic terms now, so things like phishing. So phishing is a term for any unwanted email that is looking to get you to do something. So it's an unwanted email that's just telling you about an event that you're not interested in, or it's telling you about Black Friday deals or something like that. That's just termed as spam or junk. It's only phishing when it is then they're trying to get you to click on something, or they're trying to get you to take some action, whether that's opening up a PowerPoint or downloading a PDF or clicking here and giving in credentials. It usually means there's a hidden agenda. It can come in a link, in a URL. It could be in a download, like an attachment. And I've now even seen it as Teams meetings or Zoom meetings. So a meeting suddenly appears in my calendar, and I looked at it and didn't recognize where it came from. And there was an attachment to it. And the agenda basically told me that I had to go open the attachment for joining instructions. And it was a very clever phishing attempt. So it's not just your emails now. It's also things in WhatsApp, in LinkedIn messages, in any kind of messaging forum, texts. That's called smishing. If it's an SMS, then it's smishing. So anything like that, you just need to be aware of. So take it with that zero trust. Don't click on any kind of link. Don't download anything. And don't open up any kind of attachment, whether it's in a Teams meeting or an email, unless you're absolutely certain that it's okay to do so. Like I said, calendar requests now being used. Sometimes they're written with an urgent tone of voice, like you must act now in order to be able to save money on this, or you must act now, otherwise you're going to get a fine, or this invoice is really overpaid and you're going to lose access, or the most recent one that I've seen is Microsoft Access. Your license is going to expire if you don't take action. Quite happens online. So the often small clues that you can spot a fish, but they are getting harder to spot, particularly with AI. So the AI, it now means that language is no longer a problem. So it's usually written in perfect English. Often it's better than my own English. And so it's more difficult to spot. So that's why I recommend now using a zero trust approach. So instead of assuming that you're having to look for a bad guy and you're starting with trust and then reducing down, flip it the other way around. Assume that every email that's asking you to do something is something bad, and then you're looking for reasons to trust it instead. Denise, I've seen you've asked about offering online e-learning and webinars. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared later, and we can offer e-learning through CCOE. So if you want to send an email into inquiries at CCOE, which will just pop into here for you, then we can arrange that for you. We offer NCSC assured cybersecurity training. So that's just a bit on phishing. So trust no email or link, and you're certain that it's safe and sound. So Sam, if you are on and you're able to chat, then feel free to jump in and I'll shut up and pass over to you. If not, I'll carry on as I am. So if you're able to speak, please jump in.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. In that case, I'm going to pass over to Sam for 20 minutes because the other parts that I had in don't need to carry on with that part. So just let me jump into where Sam's part is. I was done on my part anyway. So I'm going to pass you over now to Sam. And then Sam, you just tell me when.
Yeah, I
When
might
you're
have to go next slide, I'm afraid. My laptop's having a bit of a meltdown.
okay.
Ah, perfect. Hello, everyone. Well, as I thought I'd introduce myself by having a load of technical problems and scaring everyone here. So yeah, if you just go to the next slide, I'll have a quick introduction of myself. I'm Sam. I'm an ethical hacker and technical cyber lead for the Digital Care Hub. As you can see from this slide, I've done all sorts of stuff. So I used to be a head chef, and then I managed to position myself into cybersecurity, which was my passion. So I feel really lucky that I managed to turn a hobby into a career. As you can see there, I've done ethical hacking, pen tester, probably the second worst job title I've ever had, stand for penetration tester, but never mind. Worked at HSBC, NHS, all sorts of stuff. So if we could go to the next slide. Oh, this is like a lockdown again. I'm so sorry, whoever's controlling this. So just to give you a quick idea, what is a hacker? When we talk about hackers or bad actors or criminal gangs, it's just an unauthorized user who attempts to gain access to an information system, usually your systems or your organization systems. Now, you can fall down a massive black hole with this if you go into Google or YouTube and look at hat-wearing hackers. But generally speaking, there's two main ones, but I thought I'd add the third one in there, which is a black hat, which are your criminal organizations, and your white hat, which is people like Curtis and myself. We follow the law. We've got a code of conduct that we have to follow, and it's quite often boring. The grey hats, they kind of bend the law. They have got a moral compass or a personal code. Think of things like Anonymous, kind of like your grey hat. So that's just a basic understanding of what a hacker is when we talk about bad actors. We're generally talking about black hats who want you for money. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So a hacker's motivation, like any other criminal enterprise, could be a myriad of reasons. Most of us would understand greed. That's the money side. Those are your criminal gangs that are doing ransomware, trying to get money out of you. But there's other things to think about as well. There's things like revenge, curiosity, technical challenge, hacktivism, which is politics, espionage, cyber terrorism, if you start going to nation states, and state-sponsored as well. So it's just to get you to think that it's not always about money, although the majority of attacks will be. There could be all sorts of things, which is why you have to think a little bit outside the box sometimes. And speaking of thinking outside the box, if we can go to the next slide. Modern hacking at scale. I forgot that this slide was here, but this is a good slide actually. If you think of today's criminal gangs, they're not going to personalize every attack. What they do is they will scan broadly and often automatically, hunting for the weakest door. Things like software flaws, misconfigured cloud services, that could be Microsoft, that could be Salesforce, or systems that haven't been patched. When they find a gap, they exploit it, and that's when they escalate into a more focused attack. And the reason I bring this up is a lot of social care thinks that they're too small, not a target, never going to be hit. This is things that happen over there to big people, big players who have money. But the truth is, even if you're not a big target, a small misconfiguration or an unpatched software can be enough of an open door to these automatic scans that it becomes very tempting. If you haven't updated to Windows 11 yet, things like that will pop up on these criminal gangs when they scan the internet for any weaknesses. Not to scare you too much, but I thought I'd tell you that. Next slide, please. So this is what I was thinking. So one of the things that I do is something I call adversarial thinking. As an ethical hacker, I put my mind in the state of a hacker to anticipate how a system plan or idea could be challenged or exploited. If I do it, it means that somebody else can do it. And that way of thinking, it's also a little bit more fun. So I wanted to concentrate today, particularly on passwords, because you are constantly going to be told from cybersecurity management and all sorts, you have to have a good password. And I wanted to show you from the hacker's point of view why we keep telling you to have a good password. So for a start, when we talk about a hacker guessing your password, we're not actually sat there guessing, trying to remember what your dog's called, when your sister's date of birth is, or when you got married. We're not constantly looking through Facebook, although I'll show you later we can automate that, to trying to get that password. We have software that does it, and there is lots of good, I say good, bad for us, good for the criminals, lots of good password cracking tools out there. You can see on there, you've got John the Ripper, Medusa, all sorts of stuff. Now, my particular order as an ethical hacker of trying to get into your password goes in this order. I will try your breached passwords and their variations first. That is any password that you have set up in the past and has been breached. Now, that could be an obscure gaming website that you signed up to at 12 years old and not thought about. But if you haven't changed how you use a password, I will use that password and variations of that password to try and log into your other accounts. As you can see there, yes, I already know that when companies have asked you to make your password more complex, all you've done is capitalize the first letter, you've put a 1 at the end, and you've ended it with an exclamation mark. I know you've done that, the hackers know you've done that, and we already build that when we're trying to break in. Next one I will try if I'm trying to get to your password is the most commonly used passwords from everyone, because we are creatures of habit. A lot of passwords that you'll see on the screen later is pattern. We are really good at using patterns as passwords rather than like words. I remember breaking into, legally, just in case anybody's wondering, I remember breaking into a chemical company and they had number pads and it was always a cross. Like it was always, I can't picture it on this because I haven't got a proper keyboard, but it was always an X or it's an L, or it's an S, or something like that. And you can see these patterns time and time again. So most common use patterns is a lot of pattern recognition, QWERTY, 1, 2, 3, 4. People still using password for some reason. Bit more complex then, and I do apologize a little bit of jargon, but I have put warning, dictionary and rainbow attacks. Don't worry too much about that. It just means that if you're using a common password, I have ways of finding it quickly. And then finally, if all those fail and I haven't got your password, I will brute force. I will try every possible character against you until I break in. Okay, so I'll go into those in a bit more detail. So breach passwords, when I talk about breach passwords, what I mean is a database that has been stolen from a company that you've signed up to with a password. This is an example. Now, I'm not picking on Canva. It just happened to be the first one that was on my Have I Been Pwned. But you can see the compromised data there, things like email address, your names, usernames, geographic locations, and the big one for me is passwords. Now, these passwords should be encrypted, should hopefully be encrypted. But if I manage to get a database, I can attack that offline, and it doesn't matter how much you try and stop me because I have it offline. I can just try again and again and again on numbers of computers without anybody noticing because I have that database with me rather than it being held like in the cloud. So those are breach passwords. Those are what I'd look for. If we go to the next one, and this is how I use your breached passwords. So I say I know this for a fact that you don't use different passwords to different accounts. You should do, and if you use a password manager, fantastic. But if you don't, if you use the same password for everything because you think it's a good password, if I manage to find that from one of the breached passwords, I say it could be an old gaming website, it could be a gambling website, it could be anything that you've signed up to before. I will get that password and username, which is your email address, and I will try it against everything I can think of. I can try it against Facebook, your emails, and I'll get some hits and some failures. And there's a little graphic shows there. If I'm successful, I'll steal the data or move laterally. That just means that if I manage to get hold of another account of yours, I can use that account to try and break into other accounts. Okay, next one, please. And the most used passwords. Terrifying that this is still used. You can see password 1 is there and password is up near the top. I have starred out the rude one, although that is in the top 50. I like to think that the rude one is there because people have tried all the other ones and keep being told no. Interestingly, when I worked at HSBC, I did notice I Love You was used a lot by banking managers. I don't know if they were projecting, but that seemed to be a password that a lot of bank managers like to use. But if you see your password on here, please change it. Now, this ncsc.gov.uk, they actually have 100,000 of the most used passwords, not just the top 50. And it takes seconds for me to try all those against one of your passwords. There's a lot of football groups. I think Arsenal's usually the highest up. If you're into football at all, they're quite high up on the list. So those are the most used passwords. I'd say this is a bit of cyber jargon. If you're into this, fantastic. I've tried to make the graphic to sort of explain, but it is a complex one. But a dictionary tag just uses a list of common words, phrases, and variants to try and guess passwords. So you can see there, if I'm trying to break in password, it'll try password with a capital P, it'll try password with an exclamation mark at the end, it'll try password by changing the S's to 5s, and it'll try and change the A's to 4s. Rainbow table is a bit more advanced, but that's when you get a breached database of passwords, often they are encrypted. Now, that encryption is usually a one-way encryption. I won't go too much into it, but what a rainbow table can do is it has a list of the common passwords already decrypted, and it'll try that hash against the hash of the website to try and get in that way. Very basically, rainbow tables is faster than dictionary attacks usually, but takes a lot of computer space. Dictionary attacks are much simpler, but often a slower process. I do apologize about the cyber jargon, but I thought I'd throw that in there because that is something that we as hackers would try. And then this is the big one. You've probably seen variants of this all over when you're getting trained. Brute force, trying every possible character in every possible combination until something clicks. And this is why entropy, the length of your password, should be longer than you think. Like not 6 characters. I know 8 is recommended. I think that both Curtis and I would agree it should be probably longer than that, ideally going 15, 16, 18. If you've got a password manager, nice and easy, it can do it for you. If not, 3 random words is quite good, especially if you've ever tried to sign up to Disney Plus or YouTube on a TV, trying to use a remote control with a 15 random character is absolute nightmare. 3 random words makes that a little bit easier. Okay, if you go to the next one. So now I'm going to show you how would I actually do this. This is all stuff you've probably seen before, you've been told about in your training. I want to show you the tools that I have at my disposal to actually break into your accounts, or some of the tools that are available. So if we go to the next one. The first thing I will do is I will build a profile on you or your organization, and I have a lot of tools available for me. This is one of them. This is called the OSINT framework, which stands for the Open Source Intelligence Gathering Framework. You can see that I can basically use the internet to scrape every bit of detail I can find from you. Now, I've highlighted archived and deleted tweets just because I think that freaks people out sometimes. Tweets that you've deleted many years ago, I can still get access to them. Emails, breaches, all sorts of stuff. Using this and a mixture of AI, I can build a very big, very sturdy profile on you on your organization. So if it ever comes to social engineering, I will have your current address, your past address, I might have your postcode, I could have your account number, all sorts of things. This is to build it on. Okay, if we want to go next. So social engineering. If there's anybody from ADAS here, I did get permission. Admittedly, I kind of did it after I did this, but there is no real hack according to this. But I just wanted to show you, when we talk about phishing, you quite often in your mind think, I'll be able to find phishing. It's obvious, it's not spelled right, all sorts of stuff. But I want to show you how you'd actually phish somebody. So this is a legitimate site, adas.org.uk. Good people to work with if you ever don't. This is me cloning their site. As you can see, it's somewhere in my SharePoint, users Sam OneDrive. So it's hidden somewhere in OneDrive. So this is me cloning their site, exactly like for like. Now, if this was real, it'd be a login page, but I'm just doing this on a static site to show you how easy you can do. So you can see how exactly the same mine looks to theirs, but obviously at the moment it's just somewhere randomly on my own computer. So if we go to the next slide. So obviously what I did then is that I bought adas.co.uk because I noticed that was for sale. I also made sure that I could set up any custom email from whatever at adas.co.uk. So that could be admin, it could be a real person at adas.co.uk. And just to make sure that it seemed more legit, I made sure that there was a secure tunnel set up. Now, most of the companies that you do this with will do it automatically, but all that means is that If you're on Safari on an iPhone, it will show up with a green padlock to say that this site is secure, exactly the same with any browsers. So you can see here, this means information such as passwords or credit cards will be securely sent to the site and cannot be intercepted. What you don't realize, you've already been intercepted because the whole site is controlled by me. So that's an idea. So if you go to the next one, put all that together, and what do you have? You have adas.co.uk that's fully under my control. Now, obviously, if this was a real hacking attempt for me, if you go to this site, I've changed it. If this is a real hacking attempt, this would be a login page or something like this. This is just to show how you can do something like this. But if I sent you an email from something at adas.co.uk and I sent you to adas.co.uk, can you remember what the legitimate one is? And just a side one, this also means if you use a password manager, it would be able to tell. It would pop up and go, this is not the site that we should be signing up for. And that extra pause that it gives you might be enough time for you to be able to back out and realize what's happening and report me. I mean, don't report me, please, but report me if I was legitimately trying to get into you. Then when it comes to finding breaches, I've talked about breaches. Where do you actually get these breaches? Where do I, as a hacker, get the breaches? Well, you can get them on GitHub. And see here, Dorman breach, free data breaches, historical data breaches. All over the internet, you could find these databases. If it's something that you're wanting a bit more, then you need to go to the darknet, which you can see here. If anybody's been on the darknet, it's a little bit like GeoCities from the 90s. What I particularly like about this deep link onion directory is the big green text that says, we don't send any email asking for money. Any email pretend to be from us is scam. The darknet is full of scammers trying to scam scammers. It's just full of scammers scamming each other. But if I use something like this, I can use leak sites from known hacking groups. I can use marketplaces. I can try and find these breaches on the darknet. When it comes to passwords, I say I use software. This is John the Ripper password. What I like is that you do get a T-shirt when you can get a T-shirt from this. I can tell you when I worked in the regional organized crime unit, if I saw somebody with a T-shirt like this, I'd probably have a few questions for them. So maybe don't advertise the fact that you're using something like this unless you are in the area like Curtis and myself. So I'll show you in the next one what it actually looks like. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, don't worry. This is a fake database. The big thing I wanted to show you is that this is every character possibility up to 6 characters, and I managed to go into 742,912,080,729 different passwords in 44 minutes on a fairly normal PC. It is a gaming PC because I am a massive nerd, but generally speaking, this is not like a botnet. This isn't a supercomputer. This is just a PC you can have in your own home. If you have 6 characters, I will get in there. It won't take long for a piece of software like this to break into it. And one thing I will tell you, a little bit of a hint, and I think Kirsten knows this. I'm so sorry if you just go back one. If you see in the symbols, most of these software is built for Chinese and American keyboards. One thing that they often don't have that we do is the pound symbol, as in our sterling symbol. Some sites won't let you use that as a password, but I'd recommend using it if you can, because a lot of these that are set as default will not be able to find that in your password. So if you are going to use 3 random words, for example, maybe chuck a couple of pounds in there if you can. So yeah, if you go to the next one, looking at all that, how did your organization actually defend against me? And luckily, it's fairly easy. A lot of the attacks can be mitigated with fairly simple, small steps. I know a lot of it looks scary, but if you change your password from 8 characters to 12, if you set up multi-factor authentication, there's lots of little steps that you can do that makes it really difficult for me as a hacker. And in fact, I'm so lazy as a hacker, I'll give up and move on. So DSPT, if you've not heard of it, it's a data security and protection toolkit. There's kind of like basically 2 frameworks. There's a DSPT, which is public sector, and Cyber Essentials that is private sector. It's not exactly like that, but these are things that you can use as a free tool to help improve your resilience. And it's dead simple. Register, complete it, publish it, and then review it every year. Let somebody like me do the work of thinking what the risks are out there, and then you can use this to try and build your resilience. So if you just go to the next one. And the reason this is good is DSPT or Cyber Essentials or any other framework is an absolute nightmare for me as a hacker. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of the items is, does your organization have a reliable way of removing or amending people's access to systems when they leave or change rules? If you set that up and go through it properly, not just tick box it, but if you actually go through it, think about it, it's much harder for me to use stolen credentials to break into your systems. Exactly the same. Do all your computers and other devices have antivirus and anti-malware? It means I will be really hard to use off-the-shelf malware to break into your systems if you've got updated stuff. Do your IT suppliers have a cybersecurity certification? If your supplier is strong, I can't get to you via that way either. So all these things are thought about when you go through a framework like this. So if you go to the next one, and I'll sort of round up a little bit. This has probably already been spoken to by Curtis 100 times, so apologies if I'm repeating anything, but it's probably good that we're on message. When it comes to good password practice, different passwords for different logins, ideally, if you, especially your email, because if I get into your email, I can start resetting everything else. Same with any admin. Longer the better. I say 3 random words is good to help better memorize and using on your Disney Plus. Enforce multi-factor authentication and use a password manager with breach monitoring. That'll help when password's been breached, and it'll also, like I did earlier, if you get sent to a phishing site, your password manager will be like, this isn't the real site. And be realistic in your organization. If staff are busy, they are going to take shortcuts. Doesn't matter how good your policy and training is, if you can't get it embedded as a culture, it won't work. So think about other things like USB fingerprint scanners to help speed up safer logins. There's other things around it. Training and exercises, things like this today. Keep yourself and any staff refreshed. There's plenty of good free and paid training available out there. Don't struggle alone. There's a lot of stuff I imagine that Curtis and myself have gone through today. Use a framework to assist you in your organization, let's say, such as a DSPT, Cyber Essentials, or if you're a massive nerd like me and Curtis, NIST has a lot of stuff as well. There's templates galore available from Digital Care Hub, NCSC, ICO. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of stuff that you can use that other people have built, and you are free to use it. We are nerds. We love sharing this stuff with you. We probably overshare sometimes. This is a big thing for me at the moment. Suppliers check certifications and real controls. Poor Curtis, when I first spoke to Curtis, I took him through a due diligence that I really shouldn't have done. I was quite heavy on him, and he had more certifications than I've ever seen before. It was brilliant. But when you are looking at your suppliers, especially if it's IT or cyber related, look for real controls, not just their marketing promises. Don't ask, do you do this? Ask, how do you do this? And check the external certifications, whether that's ISO, whether it's DSPT, whether it's Cyber Essentials Plus. When it comes to social engineering, review your privacy settings, limit what personal information is available. Just pause and think, does the message create urgency? Just take a moment before acting. Verify before you trust. Independently confirm requests for sensitive info, payment, or urgent actions via a separate channel. Patch and catch, obviously just keep up to date, use anti-malware, and use auto updates where available. And business continuity, I realize I've put have fun in this, I will explain how, but plan, test, repeat, and have fun. Know how you'll operate if systems fail. It can be fun if you do tabletop exercises. I used to run them in the NHS for anything from bomb scares to an aeroplane landing in a hospital. You don't have to be as static, and it can give staff a little bit of a break. It depends how busy you are, how big you are. You might not be able to do like a half day. You might only be able to do a tabletop, or it might be just 15 minutes in a meeting. But just make sure that that's part of your culture, whether that's a management meeting or something like that. Plan, test, repeat, and have fun if you can. And then finally, on my last slide, reporting. You don't know what part of the jigsaw you might have with that phishing email. Somebody like me might have forgotten to turn on our VPN. We might not be as hidden as well as we thought. So please, any suspicious email that you get, send it to report at phishing.gov.uk. Any messages and phishing attempts, that's me calling you up and going, hi, my name's Sam. I'm calling from Nationwide. I've noticed a large amount of money leaving your account. If I try and talk you into that, forward it to 7726. It'll help to block the number, and it'll be used as part of tracing for the police, basically. If you think somebody is trying to trick you into handing over money, and to be honest, even if you don't, if you get a call from your bank they are trained, unless they're having a really bad day, because I help train a lot of them. They are trained to say, that's absolutely fine. I'll put a note on your account, call us back on a number you feel comfortable with. You can stop, hang up, and call 159, and 159 will take you to the bank that you want, whether it's HSBC, Nationwide, all that kind of stuff. And if you have been hacked or you've lost money to any of these, please do report it at Action Fraud or call the number 24 hours. They're usually really friendly at Action Fraud, and they'll help you. If you're not sure, they will help you discover all that kind of stuff. And that is me. Oh, I forgot to change my actual profile picture. I do look like that. That's exactly what I look like.
It's just you with a hood on.
Thank you so much, Sam and Curtis. That was phenomenal. And I think when you read the intro to the session, it kind of, we're talking about some of the basics, but actually you've embarrassed me in lots of ways, because I've now got 380 passwords I now need to go back and start looking at and changing. That was incredibly helpful. I'm clearly not compliant in quite a few ways that I didn't think I needed to be compliant in. And I imagine that risk transcends across many of our staff who are using passwords and accessing systems, our systems, employer systems all the time, really putting us at risk. So I think there was a question I wanted to chat about. Do you offer kind of training and support? And I know, Curtis, you dropped in an email address for that training and support, but I think it's really important, as you said, Sam, that we do take staff on a journey and just help them to understand some of those risks, because I didn't see some of those risks as clearly as you've both sort of made them shine out. And I can also see from a hacker's perspective how kind of addictive and how fun they can make it for themselves. If you're that way inclined, a bit of a gamer, it's a personal best. What can you hack? What can you get to? And clearly, there's a lot of tools there to make it quite easy for you to do. And I was trying to look up, see if any of my passwords are in that top 50. Thankfully, they weren't, but I have seen some of those password themes in the past. Again, I think a takeaway for me really is probably around the due diligence. I procurement and taking on care suppliers and partners all the time, and people were associated to the due diligence. We could probably do it a little bit more, asking how rather than do you. An open question rather than a yes or no question. Incredibly helpful. And I think, Curtis, you've also put the link in there about the dark web scan report. So really encourage those who are on the call today, if you want that dark web scan report, please register for it, and that will get done for you ready for the next session. Because when you join the next session, that'll be really helpful to see how your information has been out there. And the other point is about the reporting phishing. We'll make sure all of this goes out afterwards so people have access to those slides, because there was quite a lot to write down. But I had 2 phishing scams yesterday on a DocuSign, and I looked at it for about 5 minutes each time it came through, because I could not see that it wasn't a genuine DocuSign, other than I knew that no one had sent me anything to sign, so I did delete it. But it looked absolutely real and absolutely genuine. And I was looking through all my emails, spending a lot of time trying to figure out, did someone really send me that? Or it's clearly just a phishing scam to try and get me to click on the link. Thankfully, I didn't, but I would imagine many people would have done if they had that link yesterday. And I think, Kate made a note in one of the comments. I think it went to the public comments actually, but Curtis, when you were talking about the Wi-Fi networks, I kind of agree with Katie. That really does feel like things in sort of sci-fi films, that people are sitting there on public networks. I came down the train today and I do my emails on the train network because it's better than my phone network. So I need to think about that on the way back today.
DNS injections.
Yeah. So Sam can back me up. Sam, before you on the call, like I said, about people who are in secret services or detectives or people within GCHQ or others, or somebody that's just trying to get into a company. One of the things they will do is just find out either the commute and sit behind them on the train, or in a cafe, etc. And they will go as far as to look at, I've said about my glasses being really reflective, they will look for reflections and have tools that will scan those reflections and then pull the data out. And I said it sounds like something within a sci-fi film, and it is, but the technology exists.
It does happen. It does happen.
So you can get privacy screens that go onto your laptop. So Richard recommend you doing that for it, so that you can pull. It just basically just goes onto it. It's kind of like similar to polarizing on sunglasses. It just means that you can see it from dead on, but if you turn it to the side, the screen goes black. So I recommend one of them. They're not expensive. It's worthwhile having.
Fantastic. I think I'm going to have to do some investing myself. I'll get onto Amazon this afternoon. I've just met with Amazon this morning, so I could have asked them when I was at their offices. What I would say is, if anyone's got any questions, please put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A function, and we'll get to those. I have got a few that have come through. Just one question I had for myself. You talked NordVPN was one of the VPNs you use. I don't really understand myself personally what a VPN is, so I know it's a virtual private network, but I don't really know how to kind of use one of those. But I've kind of worked, and maybe I'm probably very wrong here, because I'm on Apple devices and I use Macs and iPhones. I probably don't need one, but you're probably going to correct me and say I probably should use one.
Yeah, so I'll touch on it first, and then Sam, pass over to you. So first, with the Apple kind of side of things, it used to be the case that Apple were very much highlighted as being more secure, and I say it with the quotes because it was less that they were more secure. They operate in a different manner, but more just that they were less targeted because fewer people had them. It was nothing more than Microsoft had the monopoly on work environments, so more people were targeting Microsoft because hackers are aware that you get to the kind of after lunch slog and you start falling a bit asleep and you start playing solitaire and your guard is down. It's that kind of avenue. So for the same reason, it was just a case of, well, we're going to go for the bigger target, which is Microsoft. So a lot more of the hacking tools and the ransomware, and we're talking 10, 15, 20 years ago now, in the past 10 years, completely changed. Now they are aware of people who are using Mac, and it is a case of the tools will now just determine which operating system you're on, and then we'll launch the relevant attack based on, or you're on a computer, you're on a PC versus you're on a MacBook, and then we'll target it.
100%. And Apple had an issue where there was a little bit of security complacency because of that. Because so few hackers were going after Apple, they assumed not Apple themselves, but it was assumed that it was because Apple was more secure. And as Curtis just pointed, it's not that. It was just economies of scale. As a hacker, I'm going to go after the biggest market I can, and that happened to be Windows.
Yeah, and with the VPN side, so you're quite right. A VPN is a virtual private network, and effectively all it does is wrap a tunnel around the information that you're sending from your computer or your phone to the point where you're getting the information. So whether if that's on 4G, basically from the phone signal that you're getting from your provider, if it's from Wi-Fi, it's basically just wrapping a tunnel around it from you to the router and the traffic to the end point of the site. So you can put the one that I recommend currently is NordVPN. I just find that it's good cost for value. There's other ones available, and I would always recommend when you're looking, look for kind of the top 10 VPNs, and you'll find lots of websites that direct to it and will give you the reasons why. Never rely on one website. Look at multiple websites and form your own opinion. Important thing is then set a reminder in your phone for next year to do a bit of a technical tidy up, and you're just going through to check, is this still the best VPN? Am I still getting the best bang for my buck? Particularly if you've got an introductory offer. I'm starting to sound like Martin Lewis with finance now, but if you've got an introductory offer and then it's going to expire after 6 months, you might think, right, well, I'll stick to it for a year and then I'll have a review and see whether I can still get the same.
I also just personally use NordVPN, and I just switch out from NordVPN to somebody else and then come back again to get the cheaper amount.
Yeah, so you can do that. So and if you are having problems, because you probably will, as soon as you're on, and as soon as there is an issue, like you can't get into a login page, or you can try and you know that the login page is the correct one, and you know that it's the right one, it's probably an issue at their end that they've sorted. So it is probably that they're trying to prevent you from using a VPN because they're trying to get your data and your location. But if you really need to get onto it, make sure you're on secure Wi-Fi or on your 4G or 5G, whatever it is. And then all you're doing is pausing the VPN for 5 minutes. Ideally, you want the VPN to be on all the time. So set it up to be automatic and always, regardless of which network you're on, so that then you're protecting yourself by default. That's what we want to get to. We want to get to everybody is just kind of making their information much more difficult to access by default. So you're not thinking about turning on security. You have to think to take it off. That's the better way to be. So if you're just pausing it for 5 minutes, it means it comes back on automatically afterwards.
I just stop somebody like me with what we call a pineapple device. I'll set up the fake free Wi-Fi in an airport or a coffee or something, and you'll look at your list and you'll connect to it, but you're not actually connecting to free Wi-Fi. You're connecting to the Wi-Fi via me, and I'll be reading everything that you send, everything that you do, and I can also send you to sites that I want you to go to rather than you think you're going to. So you might type in www.facebook.com, but I will send you to facebook.io and create a fake site but from your point of view it'll be facebook.com.
Yeah, and I love a pineapple Wi-Fi device. They're good fun to set up and demonstrate exactly what you're talking about, because our phones and our laptops, etc., aren't very clever when it comes to finding Wi-Fi. They just go to Starbucks. If you're at Starbucks, you go to Starbucks, you type in the generic password, which is, I don't know, pumpkin spice latte for life or whatever it is. You type it in. All you need to do is set up or Sam and I would need to do is set up. Pineapple Wi-Fi's used to be fairly chunky things. Now they're about this size. They're tiny. You can set them up fairly easily. And all you do is we would just create the Wi-Fi network. Yeah, and just create the Wi-Fi network that basically is also Starbucks and pumpkin spice for life, whatever it is. And then your phone is going to go to the closest one to get the signal. So now all of the information you're putting through is now coming through our network. If you've got a VPN on, it cloaks your information.
I can't read it. It's just encrypted to me. So even if you did connect to my fake Wi-Fi, if you have a VPN running, I can't tell what you're doing, and the DNS won't be changed if the VPN runs your DNS. That's a bit more technical, sorry, but it'll help.
You're starting to get a little bit technical now, so I'm going to
Sorry.
try to not be technical because a lot of us on the call won't be technical. But in terms of businesses and organisations, we need to kind of make this an everyday risk, not an IT issue. That's kind of like the main crux of the question. But I think just with the from a VPN perspective, first of all, is that that's something we can all buy individual personal subscriptions for. But as organisations, how can we do that to protect our staff?
Yeah, so you can get enterprise subscriptions for NordVPN or others. Some of them will have other things tied in. So the password manager I currently recommend is 1Password, but you can get NordPass and NordVPN, both Nord. You can get packages that basically tie them in together. So depending on the size of the organization, might be something you consider. If you're looking for specific tools and technologies you can use for your company, you can email us in CCOE at inquiries@ccoe.org.uk. We have protection packages that go from Solo Protect for individuals that are just looking to protect their individual laptop. We've got really good technology that is available for high street pricing, right the way through up to if you're an organization of 5,000 people and you need to look at a review. So there are options out there. It's, as Sam said, you just need to make sure that people you're buying from are also people that you can trust and that they know what they're doing. So they're not just selling you lots of gadgets and lots of tools that actually aren't making you more secure. It's about making sure that you're getting what's right for you and right for your business, so that it doesn't cost the earth, but it does save your planet.
Yeah, and as Denise has said, we will put all of these links to everything on subsequent follow-up, as Katie said. But the training that the staff needs to include all of that technical stuff around how to add the VPN to kind of personal phones and personal devices as well when you're using them for business use.
You can do, but you can also like automate a lot of this stuff to make it easier from an organization point of view, where it's already inducted onto a phone or a laptop.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And the sort of the part of the question is really around how you embed cyber as a business risk rather than just being something our IT department load onto our devices is what we really need to kind of start sort of thinking and getting our heads around. What about just maybe looking at some of the mistakes? I mean, you've talked about quite a few of them today, but mistakes that people do make kind of with passwords, and how as organizations can we try and stop our staff doing that other than just training? Are there any other kind of little hints and tips that we can use to try and get our staff to think about their approach when it comes to things like passwords?
Yeah, for starters, it's kind of what Sam said about the tabletop exercises. Make it fun. Try to make it engaging. Play Hangman, like the example that I gave earlier. And we can make sure those links will work for it. So we'll put that out in the when we share the slides. We'll make sure that those links are available to demonstrate it, because it's just getting people to understand the why. People have heard the what for years. We know you're not meant to do this, and we know the how. We know that you should make it more secure by making it uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, etc. We know it shouldn't be something that's in the dictionary. We know it should be 3 random words. The difficulty is people don't understand why the IT professionals are saying it. So if you can explain the why, everything else becomes a lot easier. And if you're able to use a demonstration like Sam has done and I have done to be able to make it clear on this is how easy it is to get a simple password and to crack into it, and why it's important to make sure you're using separate and individual ones, then people are much more willing to engage and actually take it on board. If you're just giving them a list of rules to follow, they won't understand what the point is. And so then that tends to be where we rebel most. If you explain why they need to do it, then people are usually much more engaging.
And a question to Sam here really is, Sam, you talked around reporting the issues and you gave us some great advice, and we'll make sure that obviously goes out. But we all make mistakes. We do click on links.
Yeah.
We do have breaches of our passwords. How can we kind of change the culture of organizations around being comfortable to report it and say, actually, I've clicked a link, I've done something?
Yeah, this is a huge thing for me. As much as possible from a management point of view, try and have a blameless culture. People do make mistakes. Curtis or I could click a phishing link without thinking. We could be a bit tired. We couldn't be thinking. We might have just had an argument. There's also not with each other, but something like this. it's all the time that you could just get caught out. So it's a case of not putting any blame if somebody makes a genuine mistake and saying, okay, so you have clicked this link, don't worry about it. Here's our process for dealing with it. So I've put how you forward it basically from a personal point of view. Your organization might have its own phishing thing on Outlook that you click, for example. And it's just building that culture and awareness, and being blameless and being encompassing and bring your staff along with it. It's like, these are the issues that are out there. How are we going to sort this out? What's easier for you? You know, I know you don't like setting up passwords for the 50 things we expect you to log into. How can we make that process easy for you, but still protect your data?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got small teams and large teams that we support. And in some of the smaller teams, they've got just a Teams channel, like just a Teams group chat, where they've basically just got like the fish of the day, basically. And it's the full organization that's in there. And they will just take a snipping tool, the screenshot, not the actual file and not the email. That's important because you don't want to just spread the risk. Just a screenshot of the email, and they'll put it in to say, FYI, I spotted this, it's a fish. And that just means that they've got their own internal thing. They're a small organization. They don't have huge external support or an IT department built in. They're not doing phishing simulations every other week, but they're just doing this to at least make everybody else aware. I spotted this. I think it's a fish, or I think this is a fish. Can somebody just confirm whether this is safe or not? And then that means somebody else can say, "Oh no, that was me. I sent you that Dropbox link this morning, Richard. Could you please open it? I need you to approve it." So that could kind of be the option. If you've got a smaller team, that also works within departments, or you can obviously go to the IT department and ask them for support.
I absolutely love that idea. I think, a WhatsApp group within our team here at Kerry, I'm going to set that up. And when we get there, we can just take a photograph on our phone and send it in the chat. That way there's no risk on sending the wrong thing, and just say, yeah, actually, anyone else got this? What do you think, guys? I think that's
easier. Yeah. It just means that it also you're encouraging that culture of ask the question rather than pointing the finger. That, as Sam said, I couldn't agree more. You really need that culture in from top down. I mentioned that at the start of the presentation. From top down, it needs to be clear. And as Sam said, he and I could click on link. I've fallen for my own phishing simulation before because I've set it up for an organization a couple of weeks in advance. And then I've gone in on the day the phishing simulation went out, completely forgot about it because I had been here, there, and everywhere traveling and had to put this hat on for that client that I was in. And then sat down and looked at the email. I was like, oh, yeah, I was expecting this, and clicked on it. I wasn't expecting it. I sent it. So I then got the warning saying you've fallen for a phishing simulation, and then had to be like, oh, yeah, I was testing it. I was just making sure it worked. It's easily done. It's very, very easily done.
And I think probably just a question to both of you here, maybe just give a couple of examples each, but what would be your sort of top 2 or 3 things for the smaller care providers with kind of limited resources to kind of do the minimum? What's the minimum they should be doing? Maybe 2 or 3 things each.
Yeah, do you want to start, Sam, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, sure. Get a password manager. That's a huge step in the right direction.
Fabulous.
My first one would be get a password manager as well. Second one be get VPN. And the third one be look at your endpoint. So that's your computer or your laptop, or if you've got servers, your servers. So effectively the part that you're using. So if you've got a keyboard attached to it, that's an endpoint. So if you look at the security you've got on that, and then look for the right kind of security. So the one I recommend for Windows devices is AppGuard. If you're using something like Microsoft Defender, or you've got something on it, make sure that thing is actually up to date and useful. Again, when you're looking up top 10 password managers, top 10 VPNs, top 10 endpoint protections, just check that it's going to work for your device. So if you're using a Mac, that doesn't mean that it's bulletproof. It does not mean that it's more secure. You still need to have some protections on it. There are some things built in, same as with Microsoft, but don't rely on that. You're better off to have something that's a belt and braces if you really want to make sure your trousers aren't going to fall down. So,
it doesn't have to cost much as well. A lot of password managers come with Apple, Google, they come with your Edge browsers and stuff like that. You can use things like that. If you are tiny and don't have much of a budget, that's better than not using one at all.
Yeah, I agree. I would say avoid browser-based ones. So Apple Keychain and stuff like that is absolutely fine. But using Google one, it just becomes more difficult because if the hacker gets onto your session, they can get into it more easily than with the password manager.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did take all my token thefts out of this presentation.
Yeah. So use something that is designed to be a password manager is the key thing. So those would be my 3 things. Same as Sam. So 1, password manager. 2, a VPN or something that's going to allow you to encrypt your information, which just means that it's hidden. And 3, endpoint protection that is going to allow you. And then if you want the next level for as you're growing in the organization, training. You want to be able to put that around to everybody, even if it is nothing more than an email of what we've just said. If it's just telling people, these are the things you should be doing, that's great. We do a number of cheat sheets where we basically just have like a double-sided A4 page that we put into offices or put up as posters, and we send it around to people so that there's just a kind of key thing of this is how to use a VPN. This is how to clear your browser history. This is how to change the password on your router. So how to secure your mobile, how to secure your laptop, that kind of thing. So anything like that. It doesn't have to be a long, boring training session with a PowerPoint and somebody speaking in a monotonous tone, he says, trying to make his voice sound really interesting. It can be something that is just a case of these are the top things to think about today, or here is the cyber word of the month. It could be something silly, just awareness of A, we are trying to make sure that we're raising the minimum bar and minimum level, and B, you're allowed to ask the question. In my not so humble opinion, there is no such thing as a cybersecurity expert on the planet. It changes
100%.
too quickly. So if Sam and I, if I don't know something, I'll ask Sam, and Sam will ask me, and we'll ask other people, because even though we are fully in the industry and we're looking at it every single day, it changes too quickly for anybody to be up to date. So everything we know today only helps us to protect against yesterday. We have to constantly stay up to date to protect from tomorrow. And the same goes for your general staff.
I think my only thing is a bit of due diligence. When you're going for your IT supplier, try not to pick Dave from the pub because he's really friendly. Have a little bit of, look into it.
Brilliant. And I think the cheat sheets, we're going to share those a little bit later on in the process of the Series R. We're going to share some of those cheat sheets as well. Another question we've got here is around what are the sort of the most common mistakes or issues organisations overlook when they're planning for a sort of a cyber incident?
That's a good one. So one of the key things, actually, this is a good one for any size organization. But when you're dealing with a cyber incident, you are full of adrenaline. You are massively full of adrenaline. So anything that you can do, like we've both said, doing tabletop exercises to basically practice what do we do if it goes wrong. And you can think of the most weird and wonderful and ridiculous and terrifying scenarios to kind of make it engaging. When you're actually dealing with it, you are filled with adrenaline, and it's very quickly exhausting. So you might be dealing with it, and to start with, you're flooded with adrenaline because you know the consequences if you get it wrong. You're trying to deal with the incident, and you become tired very, very quickly. So one of the things I would say is make sure not only you know who your incident lead is, who would be the first person, but who is your second person and your third person, so that you can cycle between them. Because if this incident suddenly goes from being in 1 hour, we're done. If it suddenly becomes, well, actually, this is going to be something we're dealing with for 10 days, that one person who is going to be the CISO or who has the responses cannot stay awake for 10 days and still be of use to you. They might try to stay awake for 10 days, and adrenaline is going to get them a hell of a long way there, but they're not going to be much use to you by the third day, really. So making sure that you've also planned into your business continuity rest. Make sure that there are the options there for, well, if it's Sam and I would be saying, right, okay, I'm going to take point today. Sam, if this is still continuing tomorrow, can you take point and I'll go home and get some rest, and then swap over. And also, do not underestimate the person who's going to run for coffee and pizza. They are very valuable.
Yeah. You find random staff members become extremely important that you didn't realize. And that's why we say test business continuity plans. It just means go over it. Because when you are hit with something, when your screens are blank or when something happens and that gut feeling happens, it's so much more comfortable to know that you've got a checklist that you can just go, okay, this is happening now, this is real. And because you've done it when you're calm, it's a nice thing to go to and go, okay, we'll go A, B, C, and then you can work through it that way.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge Ellen has just reminded me there's a question in the chat from Denise around assuming that VPN training is kind of provided to staff to get onto devices and phones. We kind of talked about that, and absolutely, yes, really imperative that we hold staff's hand to get that technology on there. It might be something that IT departments can do, but if we don't have them, we do need to make sure we train our staff on it. I think with so many kind of devices and remote working, there are some simple steps we probably need to take to keep kind of personal and work devices secure in a care setting. So other than a VPN, are there any other kind of personal device settings that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so on your phones, whether it's Android or iPhone or whatever it is you might be using, make sure you've got the Find My option turned on, and it will have a lost mode. Make sure that is enabled. There might be a little bit of faff with setting it up so that you've got a backup email or various other things, but it does make a very big difference if you lose your phone. If you could then grab somebody else's phone, you can get logged in, you can then go onto it and say, my phone has been stolen or lost, because that will then send a note to your phone to lock down. so that then whoever has stolen your phone or picked it up, or someone's picked it up on the train, it means that your data is protected. So that's something you can do. It doesn't cost you anything. It's usually built into phones and being able to do. Check that it's being backed up, so that then you can get a new phone and you can restore it, because it will make a big difference. We're also reliant on our phones these days that, you know, there's a lot of information you want on it, including authentication. So you want to make sure that you've got a backup for it, double check that it's up to date and stays up to date. And something I like to do every now and again is double check the privacy configurations, not just on your phones, but also social media. We have, especially now with AI and other parts added in, lots of things now get turned on by default automatically on your devices, and especially social media accounts. And social media includes LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp now as well, and Instagram. Check the security settings of them every now and again. I'd set a reminder on the first of the month or the last day of the month or payday, whatever it might be, and just go through and double check to see whether there's any new options there that you've been opted in for, and then turn it off. Reduce how much information is being collected about you. That will make a big difference.
Reset your phone occasionally, ideally once a week, but just remember to turn it off and turn it back on again, because that really helps with some of the updates and some of the slow processes.
That is a good one. Yeah.
I did also have, so I watched a little video the other day around just notifications. I have notifications turned on mine, but it was revealing the whole message. And of course, when you get the codes coming through, you need to turn it off. So you're not revealing the whole message. You have to actually log in to see the message. So lots of really great advice there. I think just in terms of training, we have touched on training a couple of times, but the training for sort of like IT tech people and frontline staff training is very different. What sort of training should we be offering to kind of the staff who are not technical experts? I mean, 80% of our workforce the average age of our workforce is 45, 30% of our workforce is over 50. So there's a huge amount of our workforce have not grown up in the technical age where technology was used in childhood. You know, a lot of us are not as competent and comfortable with it. What should we be offering to those staff?
Just the key kind of the points would be the technologies that you use specifically. Make a cheat sheet, find the person who is a bit of a guru in the system, and get them to do a session. You can record the session and ask them to make a PowerPoint session. You can turn that PowerPoint into a cheat sheet fairly easily, or into a document, or use Canva to make it just look nice, so it's easier to put it through. That's good for the specific systems that you use, including how to set those systems up securely. So, you know, to set up MFA, you're going to the three dots here, you're going to settings, you're adding it in. Having that in a screenshot and a couple of bullet points is just easy, because what we need to do is stop assuming that everybody knows how to use every system. Yeah. When we came onto here, it was, you know, I don't usually use Zoom online, and I kind of couldn't find the option until I found it, because I'm used to navigating systems. For people that aren't used to navigating the systems and knowing where to look for certain systems, you just need to make that bit obvious. So read through the information that you're giving and the kind of bit, and work out, you know, would your gran and your grandpa or your really technology technophobic friend understand it? Because people within my generation below aren't automatically also understand what they're doing with technology either. Otherwise, Sam and I wouldn't need a career in this, because everybody would know it automatically.
I'd go be a chef again.
Yeah, so just kind of you need to work out what the assumptions are. So if you might assume that everybody knows where to go to find these things, make it kind of bulletproof, so it's very, very clear. This is where to go for the settings, go turn it off. But that will be specific to your organization and the systems that you're using.
And just to plug Digital Care Hub, we have free training that you can use, and we've got separate training whether you are frontline staff or data protection officer, or you want a little bit more, such as the cyber game. So we have a variant free training that you can use and get certification and stuff for.
Brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Katie.
We are moving towards the end, so I just want to just get a couple of bits in. There's another couple of questions I want to ask you, if that's okay. But when you talked about the personal phones and devices, hopefully we'll have some cheat sheets for that. And Sam, we can hopefully point. Oh, Katie's done it. We can point to those resources, but we'll follow those up as well with the email we send out with some links to some helpful resources, not to overwhelm people, but to kind of make sure we're continually pointing people. One of the questions, Katie just put a note in the chat actually around WhatsApp, because we all tend to feel WhatsApp, because it's encrypted, is incredibly secure. But are there any precautions we need to take with that, other than knowing that if we work in government, our messages may not always be kept confidential?
I was going to bring up exactly that. Okay, so just because it's in WhatsApp, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's yours. So if you are using WhatsApp for work purposes, keep in mind that then becomes a work forum, and should be treated in the same way as anything else. And the easiest way to be able to point is not just government, but a lot of police officers, despite the fact that they're just having a kind of chat with their colleagues, and obviously they're dealing with some pretty horrific stuff on a daily basis. So a lot of them have quite dark humor, and they're messaging each other, and then they can lose their jobs because of something they've said privately to their friend on WhatsApp, even if they've received something and not done. I would say the care sector is in the same kind of area. So I would recommend actually install Teams on your phone, use Teams as the work chat, use WhatsApp for the social chat. If you want something that's more secure, that is encrypted end to end, don't use WhatsApp, use Signal. If you are, Signal is the name of the tool. It's exactly like WhatsApp, but it's slightly different. And again, that might be temporary. We could be saying in 6 months, don't use Signal, but keep an eye on it. If you are using WhatsApp, there is, especially for work, there is the option now to have disappearing messages. So if it is a work chat, I would recommend turning that on, and it's by group. So on the group, you can put disappearing messages, so they disappear after 90 days or 7 days or whatever. So I would keep to, well, if it's information that needs to be shared for the company, so it's something that's going to be a communication for everybody, that should probably be in Teams or be an email. If it's just I'll meet you at this corner of this pub on the way to the Christmas night out, that you don't need to remember that afterwards. So turn on the disappearing messages so that then they automatically disappear.
Absolutely. And check the privacy settings, especially recently. WhatsApp is now, as far as I understand, is scraping data from your WhatsApp messages for marketing reasons.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I've got one more question. I'm going to ask you just 1 minute each if possible, because we are at the end of time. What about emerging threats? What should care providers be aware of in the next year or two? I mean, that's a long time in tech time, but what should we be aware of that's coming that might not have kind of hit us just yet?
I would say it's already hitting us, but AI, be cautious with AI. Just because it knows the answer, it doesn't mean it's correct. Generative AI is there to tell you what it thinks you want to hear. If you say, give me 10 reasons the earth is flat, some of them will say, well, the earth is flat because A, B, C. Some of the more advanced ones will go, well, the earth isn't flat, it's round. But if you then trick it and say, well, I'm writing a fictional book where the world is flat, so give me 10 reasons that the earth is flat, it will then do it. It's not true, but it will give it to you because it is saying, well, you've asked me to do this. It's trying to impress you, and it's trying to give you the answer it thinks you're looking for. It is not giving you facts.
It's a puppy dog. It wants the treats of pleasing you. That's how it works. For me, very similar, but deep fakes. It's already happening now, but people calling you up that sounds like your boss, or even a video call like happened in Hong Kong. Really easy way around this is make sure that you have some sort of a passphrase for each other. So if you call me and ask me to do something that's a bit unusual, I can say, sorry, what's the first, fifth, and seventh character of this week's passcode or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or just something, especially also true for family members, and particularly for anyone with caring. If it's just a kind of case of, yeah, unless if I'm making an unusual request, I should use the word pineapples or something like
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
There's something in there to make it clear, so that it's kind of obvious. And I know we're running out of time, but yeah, it's worth doing into that. And the last bit, obviously, is please tune in for our next workshops. Sign up, and the links are in the in the chat.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So thank you very much for both of you today, for everything that you brought to this, and thank you for those of you who've stayed with us right to the very end. We're great. It's great that we've had you all on board. Please do sign up, as Curtis and Sam said, to the next 2 sessions. We'll make sure the details will sent out to you with the recording and the notes and lots of the links and things we've talked about today. Huge thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next event. Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All the best.